When the narrator thought of getting Ranga married, he had already got a girl on his mind, and the girl name is Ratna. So who is Ratna? Ratna was the niece of Ramarao, who was a pretty girl of 11. Both her parents had died and her uncle, Ramarao, had brought her to the village. Being a girl from a big town, she knew how to play the veena and the harmonium. She also had a sweet voice. All these qualities in her differentiated her from other girls of the village and made her a suitable bride for Ranga. The narrator was of the opinion that Ranga was just the boy for her and she the most suitable bride for him. Now, students, to make this marriage materialize, the narrator humorously manipulated a plan. At that time, the time in the story was written, child marriages were quite prevalent. Thus, it was not surprise on the narrator's part to pair up Ranga with a child of 11 years old. The narrator started to play the role of a matchmaker. He began to design a plot in order to get Ranga married. Very cunningly, he crafted an opportunity to make Ranga and Ratna meet each other. The narrator was well acquainted with the girl, as he was a frequent visitor to Ramarao's place, and Ratna was also comfortable with the narrator. To execute his plan, the next morning the narrator paid a visit to Ramarao's house and asked Ramarao's wife to send Ratna to fetch some buttermilk from his house. So the narrator told Ramarao's house that he will send some buttermilk for them, and he asked Ramarao's wife to send Ratna to bring it from his house. So that was his first plan. Now let us see what happened next. It was Friday, an auspicious day for the Hindus, so Ratna had worn a grand sari. The narrator told her to sit in his room and he requested her to sing a song. The narrator had also very cunningly sent for Ranga to come to his house. He simultaneously made arrangement for the arrival of Ranga to his place. As planned, at very moment Ranga arrived at the narrator's house, while Ratna was singing the song of Krishnamurti in front of the narrator, and Ranga stopped at the threshold. Threshold means the entrance of the door. Ranga was enchanted by the melodious voice and singing of Ratna. He did not want the singing to stop, but was eager to see who was singing. Ranga had become curious to know who the girl was in sight. He peeped in carefully. His presence at the door blocked the light, and by seeing a stranger, Ratna stopped singing abruptly. Ranga felt disappointed when Ratna stopped singing. The narrator compared the shock and resentment of Ranga when the singing stopped to the dropping of a juicy ripe mango from one's mouth. He said Ranga had the same disappointment on his face as one would have when his juicy mango slips from his hand and falls on the ground, as he would try to eat it as slowly as possible. Now suppose you are eating a juicy mango and before you could enjoy it fully, it slipped from your hand and fall. How do you feel? You feel disappointment of not being able to eat it fully. So it is the same when Ranga was enjoying a very sweet song and when it stopped suddenly, it was exactly the same feeling Ranga had. His face showed his disappointment. Ranga asked the narrator why he had called for him. Ratna stood at a distance with her head lowered. The narrator could see that Ranga repeatedly glanced at her. Ranga was only trying to look at the girl, and once he saw the narrator noticing him, he felt very embarrassed, and no one spoke for a while. It was my coming in that stopped the singing. Let me leave, was said by Ranga. Seeing Ratna was uncomfortable to sing in Ranga's presence, Ranga blamed himself for making Ratna stop her singing and offered to leave. There was an awkward silence in the room. Ratna became shy and ran inside. Words, mere words, the fellow said he would leave, but he did not make a move. The narrator spoke these words to himself. The narrator was making fun of Ranga by thinking that although Ranga had opted to leave for the singing to continue, but made no move to go, even the narrator knew they were mere words. Hearing her sweet voice, Ranga silently developed a liking for the girl. The narrator also make one remark that how can one expect words to match action in these days of Kali Yuga, which means the narrator wants to say that whatever people say these days sometimes they do not perform or follow what they speak. They contradict with their own words when it comes to take action. They are not true to their words. So he was just quoting example of Ranga because he said he was going to leave but he never left. So he was making fun of Ranga and the generation.